Stars, I'm a fool for your love.
Hey everybody, Rock here. Thank you so much for staying with me this long. I appreciate it. I'm trying to cram as much information I can in like 12 minutes so that you get the best picture possible of what it's like to live a life like mine. And last video I talked to you guys about how I would talk about how we, when my parents reconnected and when we moved all back in together as a family, I wanted to talk to you guys about how certain patterns would reemerge or try to reemerge. So I'll get into that now. So basically, after my father is out of prison, we moved back in together in this apartment in Newmarket. And it doesn't take long that I'm taking a shower on my own, and my father's watching me again. He surprised me. I'm like, what are you doing in here? I'm like, and I'm like reliving it. I can feel the water hitting me. Like I can feel it. And I'm like, haven't you learned your lesson? Do you want to go back to jail? Is that what you want? Like, what is this? And it's almost like that comment went right over him. Never even heard me say anything. All he wanted me to do was to masturbate with a cloth because it felt better. So I rapidly finished my shower. This was like a turning point for me, because this was like, in that moment in the shower, I thought to myself, I can't believe this is happening again. I can't believe that in that moment I was like, am I gonna do this? Am I gonna do what he says? And I was thinking, I can't believe you're gonna do this. The voice, that observer inside of me. And then I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. In fact, I would like for you to leave the washroom. Like, leave. And I'm not sure if he did leave or not, but I don't think he left. I think I was the one who ended the shower. I'm pretty sure I ended the shower, wrapped up my towel, and walked out of the bathroom, the washroom, and my mother was standing to the left in the living room of this apartment. And she looked at me. She looked at me and she said, "What's happening in there? What's going on in there?" I think is what she said. How would you take that? Would you take that like somebody was trying to blame you for what was happening? What's going on in there? And I said, why don't you ask your husband what's going on? Because you're asking the wrong person. And she muttered something under her voice, put her hands up in the air, and she said something like, "Oh, not this again. I don't want to go through this again," or something like that. So I go into my room, and I am drying myself, and my dad's there again. And then I just tell him straight up, I'm like, if you try to do that again, I'll leave. You'll never see me again. I'll just leave. I'll never be here. You'll never see me again. Is that what you want? Well, you don't have to threaten me, is what he said. And then I said, well, I'm not threatening you. I'm not threatening you. I'm serious. If you try this again, I'm gone. Like, seriously. Enough's enough. Things would blow over for a while, and he wouldn't try again. He wouldn't do it to me. Whether he did it to other people, I don't know. He would try once more when I was in college. He came for a visit. He was working for a company that dealt with and worked on debit machines in grocery stores and stuff like that. And one of the contracts was in Sudbury, where I was going to school. I wasn't even living with them anymore. And we went to my uncle's for a visit, and as we were back home, I was like, okay, well, you can sleep like the couch is there for you, and I'll go in my room. And he wasn't having it, right? He was like, well, no, I'm sleeping in the same bed with you. And I was like, oh, okay. And you can tell, like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, when I say that I was talking to this with my wife. The abuse I went through has long-lasting effects. It just keeps, like, there's always something new that I have to tackle, that I don't want to, a behavior I have to tackle it's connected to what happened to me, you know? I'm not blaming, I'm just saying it's a ripple effect, right? A butterfly effect. And so he's in my bed, and we're going to bed. I believe I have school the next day or something like that, and he's about to leave. He's leaving the next day. And I don't know how he asked, but for lack of better words, he basically asked me if we would, like, do you want to masturbate? I'm not sure if that's how he said it, but he said that in his own words. Would you like to do the same thing as we did before? Something like that. And I was like, no. Like, I thought this was over. Like, what the hell? And so he, in my bed, next to me, masturbated. While I was turned to the side, I was like, I'm not doing this with you. And in that moment, it was like a victory for me. It was official. I mean, I know he was doing it right next to me, which was like, not really, but it was the start of me breaking the cycle. Because I would never, ever do it again. I would never be abused by him again, sexually. Mental is a whole other thing, and that just lasts, right? I'm still working on stuff like that. But it was a win for me in that moment. I would never allow him to do that again. And I was breaking the cycle, even if it would take a couple years to do that, right? To continue to chip away at some of the behaviors that I had kind of inherited from him. Bad behaviors. And in that moment, I was like relieved. Even though he was jerking off right next to me. I was relieved that I had done that I had stuck to my guns, that I was growing into my own self. And I go through college, I meet my wife, we start hanging out with my parents regularly, if not every weekend, every second weekend, for the foreseeable year maybe or so. My wife and I, well, she wasn't my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but we move in together. Things are moderately normal. I mean, when we do get together, we're getting plastered, we're getting hammered, we're drinking beers, I have friends over. I think it's all in the past. You know, we're moving forward. This is normal. I get married. My wife gets pregnant, and then we move to Kingston. And even if there was some toxicity, and I'll talk about one instance real quick. I'll talk about, and this is my own doing, it's not just my father's fault, but I, at a wedding, I defended my father over somebody who was purposely being a bit of an ass. He was spilling drinks on my father on purpose because my father had arrested him when he was a kid. So me and this guy kind of get into a brief altercation. I push him, he stumbles, stuff. It was very minor. But we leave, and we had been drinking all night. And my wife, when we were at the party, she had gotten in between this fighting. As, women tend to do that sometimes. My advice to women is, when you see two men about to fight, don't get in between. Just let them fight, because the last thing you want to happen is to get punched in the head by mistake. By a man who's enraged. It'll hurt you, trust me. So, go home, and my dad's like, we were talking about that. We were still revved up. And my father was like, your wife can be so stupid sometimes. And there was a story attached to that, how my father had called me stupid when I was a child, And it always stuck with me. I didn't like getting called stupid. Now it doesn't bother me. Whatever. I can be stupid sometimes. So in that moment I was enraged. I was like, don't call my wife stupid. I don't like that. She's not stupid. Yeah, but she could be stupid. And I remember like getting enraged in his house. This was in Verner at their house. And I grabbed a beer bottle that I was drinking and I smashed it on the table. And he was sitting just across. So he grabs his bottle and he smashed it on the table. There's beer and there's glass all over the place. And I'm thinking to myself, are we about to kill each other? Is this going to happen? Like, there was that little voice inside of me saying, get out of here! This is not going to end well. So I drop the bottle, I run outside, but I'm enraged. And I punch through 2 windows, which ended up, giving me over 150 stitches in the arm. And I still have glass in my arm. And that would be an eye-opener for me. That would be a moment where I would say to myself, I will never defend you for your actions. You need to own up to your own thing. My mother defends him a lot. The way I see it, maybe this is not true or not, but he's been behind. My mother stood in front of him, taking the blunt of all this attack from her family and everybody else, right? While he kind of sits behind. This is my impression. I could be wrong. But he's never really had to defend himself. My mother's always kind of like rescued him in that moment. And so anyways, I decided that I would not defend him anymore. And to this day, I haven't really been that person anymore. I've reconnected with a lot of the family that disconnected with us, and rightfully so back then, aunts and uncles, and I've made amends with them to the best that I could, and I hope that they have felt my sincere intention of making amends. And the next video I'm going to talk about is essentially the last video, I believe. I'm going to talk to you guys about how we heard of something that really brought me back into a state of depression, anxiety, and just a bad place. And I want you guys to take one thing with you, and that's to celebrate your victories, even if they are small. Like when I was laying in bed and I refused to be assaulted, or kind of refused to assault myself, I guess. That was a victory for me. Even though he proceeded to masturbate next to me, it was a victory. It would lead to other small victories, and if you compact them all together, you end up getting a changed person, which is who I am now and continuously changing. Please share the video. I would really appreciate that. Your support has been unbelievably positive. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And my hopes is that these videos can help. Again, help but not hurt. So thank you so much. Have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye.